Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religions. And I don't do a whole lot of shows like this, but I want to do a deep dive and try to dig into the foundational meanings, the etymology of words, all the way down to the root meanings, and show that, oh gosh, I don't really know a nice way to say this. The interpretation that we read in the text of, say, for instance, the King James, is lacking depth. There's an old expression in literature: no Tyndale, no Shakespeare. What does that mean? Well, if it weren't for Tyndale's translation of the Greek and the Greek lexicon and the Latin Vulgate, there would not have been the 1537 Matthew's Bible, which, just referring to the Old Testament, was available. Let me read that. It seems important. I'm seeking to say peace and respect to those that curse me. Amen, brother. Exactly. It's very biblical, you know. It provides obedience to God by not returning evil for evil. Very good. Or reviling for reviling. And frankly, the devil has been attacking me a lot, and will probably more for your graciousness received from God spread to others. Trust me on that. And please realize that you are asking to be taught patience by doing that. Yeah. And you will gain patience if you keep doing that. I'm not saying it's a flawed translation per se. I'm not. I'm saying it's not as rich and deep as it probably should be. And that's what Shakespeare saw in the Old Testament translation by Tyndale. So he saw that it was being written on multiple levels. Whether that's a person or a group, I don't really care. But that it was obvious to that mind, singular or collective, that the Old Testament was being written on several levels. There's an old joke that goes with this. Ask 3 rabbis, get 5 answers. That's the truth of it. And why is that? Because they would be explaining to you the multiple layers of understanding the Bible. So when Shakespeare wrote in whatever play some slapstick comedy, well, that's for the simple-minded and for the children, you know, and that's funny to that level of thinking. And then under that, Shakespeare wrote like social hierarchies and social structures, and beneath that, within that, he wrote human nature, you could say. So he's doing on. Then I'm not going to talk too much about Shakespeare, but it's plainly in the Bible, and why rabbis can just go on and on about one singular verse from Tanakh forever, it seems. And frankly, now so can I, because I see the value of these things. So this cover here, the 2 different kind of menorah. The menorah over my apparent to you right shoulder is the menorah for the normal usage throughout the year, the 7 candle menorah. Peace and respect, none you biz, and welcome. I think it's intently by God to read a pronoun, have it refer to a possible 2 different things. Yes, you are correct. And you know, there's ways to interpret the words in the Bible where it'll just end up a salad, a word salad that makes no sense at all. But there's only so many applications of the breadth of a definition of a word that can be applied that after several words in a row, it still makes sense in comparison to each other. And that's how you know that you're on something, is because it will continue to build and make sense. So that's a really good indicator. Now, in peace and respect, Michael Wyatt. I don't believe I've seen you here before, Michael Wyatt. Welcome. You're going on Wrangler's panel tonight. Okay, that's for somebody else. So 7 is the number of perfection in Hebrew gematria. Peace and respect, Cryptomeria. And what does 7 mean as perfect? Well, it's as perfect as a person can be here. So that's why the number 8 is to be muscular or fat. And yes, that's the same fat and muscle that's being referred to in the sacrifices, the same idea, that it's above this state of human ability to be perfect. So even when you read the word perfect in the Bible, that's not necessarily a premium. It's just the best we can be right now. Well, none of you make a point, but there's 2 menorahs. The 7 is for everyday life. And then the 9 candle is for a specific time of year. And I'll be covering that too. And 9 is the number of transition in Hebrew gematria. And yes, all of this works together. I mean, just one layer of confirmation on top of another. It works great. Okay, let me get into the minutia of it. Here we go. So what I'm presenting is what I'm calling a level of reading called Cryptic Prophetic Animism. And that's the viewpoint that I'm going to be presenting today. And depending on what part of the text you're talking about, it's about the 4th or 5th reading level in meaning, under a meaning, something like that. So what's Cryptic Prophetic Animism? It's taking the relatable natural surroundings, like your actual surroundings. Like if I made a story about your dog or cat, or I made a story about your kitchen table, or maybe your neighborhood or the park outside. And I use all these things and I assign them values that only human beings would have. And you'll find this is true of every animal mentioned in the Bible. It has a human value, some kind of set of personality traits. So you can say, well, it's anthropomorphization. Fine. So we're forcing human attributes and emotions onto inanimate or less conscious than us things that are beings. So that's the kind of idea. Like in my culture, you might hear someone say, "Oh, that person's a wise old owl." Well, it does, or just make it short. Oh, that person's like an owl, meaning they're looking around, they're observing, they're aware, and that awareness has brought them to wisdom, saying that they are wise. Now, are owls wise because they look around a lot? Yeah, that's where Christians go wrong. It's not trying to say that the actual owl is wise. It's not trying to say the actual donkey talks. It's not trying to say the actual snake, can make vocalizations that Eve could understand. That's really not the point. That's a level of reading employing anthropomorphization of inanimate and or less than intelligent creatures. Just a minute. Throat will get dry if you talk enough. Okay. So it's relating that natural surroundings were used to poetically express that which will be in the future. That is, it's prophetic. So it's cryptic in that it's spoken like in a poetic or like a fairy tale form. It's prophetic in that it's speaking about some distant future. And it's animistic in that it's using actual surroundings to describe something much more important. And we often, as believers, suspect that there's some pretty darn nitpicky rules in the Bible. Some of the laws just seem like, man, why even put that? Is that really all that darn important? Do not wear a robe of mixed fiber. What? Why not? Like, I can't mix like cotton with goat hair. It's a sin. Well, actually, it's not what it's talking about. When it says, to not have a garment of mixed fiber, it's actually talking about a much, much more important thing. I'd love to get into depth sometime. But that's the reason why you notice some of the laws are so nitpicky. It is because it's not being direct. It's speaking in poetry. It's speaking of a specific future time, just using natural things to say it. So I'm using today Blue Letter Bible and its recordings of Strong's and Jusinius to thoroughly flush out the root words of each of these meanings. And all of this in an effort to rightly divide. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that in the Greek. No chance. But it's from a compound of G3717 and the base of G5114 to make straight, or to make a straight cut, i.e., either figuratively to dissect, right, or to expound correctly the divine message, to untwist, to make straight, to straighten, to make obvious. Okay, so that's what rightly divide, what came out rightly divide, that's the actual definition of that word right there. And then, of course, the word, which is Lego. You may remember logos, right? That kind of word, which means a spoken word, to lay it forth, to put it out there, right? To relate it from the Greek 2036 and Greek 5346 refers to an individual expression or speech, respectively, while the extension of it, Greek 4483, properly to break silence, to mean ask, bid, boast, call, describe, give out, name, put forth, say, saying, on, or say on, show, speak, tell, or utter. So to rightly divide the word means to make obvious by relating an ultimate truth, the logos. No, you guys are fine. You have things to discuss. I have no problem with it. I mean, this is one of the reasons that you record these kinds of things so people can review it later, because life happens. Peace and respect, mindful exposure. Hello. On to the next slide. So here's the King James translation of that part of the Bible describing the menorah. And actually, as I did the copy and paste of the actual words from Torah concerning how to build the menorah, it's quite interesting and actually profound, and maybe even more than that, or at least equal to that. It's giving the meaning of what that candlestick is, which is really interesting to me. You are to make a menorah of pure gold. It is to be made of hammered work. Its base, shaft, cups, ring, and outer leaves and petals are to be of one piece with it. It is to have 6 branches extending from its sides, 3 branches of the menorah on one side of it, and 3 on the other. One branch are to be 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms. I didn't even get beyond the first sentence of this, and it already is a profound story. And I really should, but I wanted to go ahead and get this up here. I really should go over what almond blossoms mean, because the almond here refers to the pineal gland, and the blossom here, which you would think means a flower of an almond, is the opening of the pineal gland. Dude, this stuff's so deep. But anyway, so I'm going to stop right there and go on to the words that I translated. And I get all of the verse from 31 through 37 of the Complete Jewish Bible. My source was the website One for Israel. Okay, the Menorah. I'm not going to try to pronounce all that stuff in different languages and such. It's from a primitive root in the definitions of Hebrew 5:2:14 and 5:1:35, properly meaning to glisten. A lamp, i.e. the burner, or light, either literally or figuratively. And of course, in these sorts of things, the figurative is much more than the actual physical object. It's much more important. A candle, a lamp, a light. And in Cryptic Prophetic Animism, this is the same as saying the revelation of truths. That is the synagogue. Also, the Hanukkah 9 branch, Hanukkah. The tale handed down from generation to generation is that this small supply of oil miraculously lasted for 8 days, which gave enough time for more oil to be prepared. That in itself is a story, meaning you don't actually have enough for the time to be celebrated, the Yahudah, the time to be celebrated. You don't have enough oil for that. But miraculously, actually by intervention of God, so it's not like a natural miracle, it's an imposed miracle. It's enough to get you there. That is to say, our life and experience here is not by any means in fatness. It's not an 8, it's a 7, and it's good enough for now. Like the Lord says, let my grace be sufficient. Be satisfied with that for now. And this is why they eat oily foods during Hanukkah. So it has 9 branches rather than 7 to symbolize the 8-day miracle and the extra servant light from which all the others are lit. And the Cryptic Prophetic Animism view of that is to give light to the people, but only at a certain time. Now, right now, of course, it's celebrated once a year, but that Jewish year represents in this same way all of the time of man on the earth, which is why they're told to do it for all time, because that's the same thing. So the word that turned out to be gold actually is from an unused root meaning to shimmer. Gold, figuratively, something gold colored, i.e. as in yellow, like oil, or clear and shimmering like a clear sky. Gold, golden, fair weather. I read that as the earth being clean and pretty. Clear water, clear skies, that kind of shimmering. Hammered. Interestingly enough, hammered is not what you would think at all. It means to be knotted up, to be made round, to be made hard, or to harden something. Something turned and hammered to make it tougher. I.e. like a curl of tresses, meaning hair, or well-set hair. So this is activities that harden, if you can see that. So it's representing the idea of suffering to make us tougher. That's the idea there. The word shaft, from an unused root meaning to be soft. We think, well, wait a minute, who has a soft shaft? Yes, that's how poorly this was translated. But part of the actual meanings of the description means that something is soft, like the thigh, from its fleshy softness. By euphemism, the generative parts, figuratively a shank, a flank, a side, body, loins, shaft, side, thigh. So this is in total the idea of to later soften them. So we have an appointed time of the sparkling place that, I don't want to miss a word, of the sparkling place that makes us tough, which causes later softness. And now we get into why. To erect, to create, by extension, to procure, especially by purchase, by implication, to own, to attain as a buyer, right? And if you take the derivative word, the highest form of the word, it can be, instead of cup, it can be reed. And of course, that reed is attained for measurement. So the total idea of cups is to erect a measurement in them that are being spoken of here. And you'll find out in a minute who's the them. Of course, if you know what the shining place is, you already know who the them is. Bowl, meaning to be convex. A goblet, by analogy, the calyx of a flower. A house or cup or pot. And in CPA, it's to collect, maintain, or contain, like within an ark. Let's see, knops. They say probably, but it's the best answer they have. From an unused root meaning to encircle, a chaplet, but used only in an architectonic sense, as in, like if you are an architect, i.e. the capital of a column, or a reef, like a button or a disc on the candelabrum, a knop. And in CPA, I say that collectively that means like building a protective hedge or shield for them. Flowers. To break forth as a bud, to bloom, generally to spread, to fly. You know, flowers don't actually fly. And part of this definition makes no sense for a flower, but it sure makes sense for some other stuff. As extending the wings. Oh, not that flowers have wings, but I know of something that has wings, that flies, that's important to us. Figuratively, to flourish, abundantly, to blossom, break forth, break out, to bud, flourish, make, fly, spread, to spring up. The calyx, natural or artificial, generally the bloom, the blossom, the bud, the flower. So the idea of a blossom flying away, or flying away and blossoming. Who do we have new in side chat here? Peace and respect, Savage Minnow, Jamie Russell, Wild Heart, Ashra's Orchard. Thanks for coming by, guys. If you're not staying very long, please remember to vote on the video, whether thumbs up or thumbs down. I leave to you. No, Wild Heart, you have those in reverse order. It's not a soft shaft to be made hard. It was actually to be made hard to become soft later. So it's post-coitus in your joke. Flowers shall be. I'm not going to read all those numbers to you. It's supposed to mean properly to breathe, to be in the sense of existence, like having being. Like a rock has it has being. In the philosophical usage of the word, anything that exists has being. It's in the process of be. It's being. Times to have. So it's to have being, to have breath. And you'll find that that's the same as spirit, related to the word ruach. Same. Shall be same is how that line ends, that the flowers will be the same. Of course, that's a really shallow, almost meaningless description of a physical object. from an unused root, meaning to apportion, apart, hence a musical chord as parted into strings, like the strings strummed at certain lengths and certain tones will make a chord. Like in Psalm 68:23, a stringed instrument. The constructive plural, as in Isaiah 30:11, properly a part of, hence from or out of, above, after, among, at, because of, by reason of, from, and among with. Well, among with what or whom? You could say in harmony with, or being alongside of, or the same as. The same as what? The same as him. The whole point of the whole thing. So here they are in the order given. To give light to the people in transitioning, clean earth, as in the Garden of Eden, suffering, making them hard experientially, to later soften them, to erect measurement in them, to collect, maintain, contain within an ark, building a protective hedge or shield for them, flying away and blossoming of them, to have being, that is, that they have being, or breath, or spirits, alongside of him. What is this story, please? A menorah is, both figuratively and in its physical representation, telling the story of, to give a light to the people at a specific time in the garden of his pleasure, when they suffer, making them hard, so they can later be soft and able to measure and maintain in that container protection after they fly away and bloom in the spirit alongside him. And that is why there are 9 candle holders in the Hanukkah menorah. The Hanukkah is so that it's saying you're in the time of transition. It's a way to remind the people of the time of transitioning. And this is a description of the transition and why. All right, let's go to side comments and side chat and see what people are saying about this. Let's see. Canvas is a flower with wings. It gives you wings, I guess, if you're of that persuasion. Let's see. Mean can also be from not just a type of species. Yes. Did I jump ahead and bring up the shamash? Did I jump ahead and bring up the shamash too early? No, Savage Minnow. Shamash was part of the research I did today to make this slide presentation. What know you of Shamash? I did not know you had a Jewish background, or perhaps forgotten. Let's see what else we got. On the slide, on the live. This one here, the last one, you can't make sense of that? Really, Nunya? I think it's quite plain. The menorah is a physical representation to remind the people, to tell them a truth, to put light on them, that at a specific time, while they're in the garden of his pleasure, or the Garden of Eden, when they have suffered, making them hard enough so that they can later be soft and able to measure and maintain a certain way of thinking, in that container of protection in heaven, which they will be in after they fly away and have bloomed, blossomed, quickened, vivified, perfected in spirit alongside of God. Maybe that's not the paragraph you're talking about. Peace and respect, Jay Pasick. Welcome. There is a menorah that is 7. Then there is a Hanukkah that is 9. That's correct. And that's used during only Hanukkah. That's correct. That's correct. And I, in this presentation today, Jay, I didn't get into the 7-candle menorah, only to say that it is 7 is the gematria number for perfection, but it means perfection here, not actual perfection, which is how 8 can be fatness or above perfect. Yes, the Shema is the center candle with which you light the rest of them. That's correct. It could be a literal Bic lighter or a flashlight. Yeah, but traditionally would be a candle, of course. Yes, that's right. It's the spark which guides you home. Think about that, which you just wrote. The spark of creativity or one who guides you home. That's correct. Think about that. That's the Mashiach. He's that light to happen in fulfillment of the prophecy. When the prophecy is fulfilled, all of it's fulfilled, the end of the earth. One of my favorite mantras is be the Shamash. That's nice. That's sweet. I like that. Be the Shamash. Which I probably saying it poorly, but that's okay. It doesn't matter that much. You surprised me, Savage Minnow. I had no idea you'd have so much to add here today. It's amazing. Which, I didn't do the Shamash, and I didn't do the 7 branch. Address the connection of the Shamash to the Canaanite god Shamash. Yes, the sun god, the source of light. I do believe that Shamash, meaning the actual sun in our solar system as a god, it is a very good way in animistic explanation of things to say, the brightness, the life giver, the source, these kinds of ideas in reference to the high God. And I really don't have a problem with them saying it that way. Yes, they share the same root word, precisely the same root word, in fact. And that's not surprising, since that word and its variation come from the same part of the world at the same time. Garden of His pleasure. Garden. You could also say Garden of Eden. Jay Pasick. Ghost 1978 wrote, Demolish, I just stopped by to check the channel out since you were nice enough to say hi to others. I'm not religious. Therefore, I won't comment on content. Have a good day. Peace and respect, Subliminal. Good evening. Well, Ghost 1978, I prefer people to not be religious, because religious is like saying, I'm dug in and I don't have to change. And I already know everything that is true or possibly important. And because of that, I'm done learning. That's what religion commonly says to me. I personally don't exercise a religion. I think it's a bad idea. Instead, what I do want to exercise is, a series of tests to show if something is not true. It can't be true. Yeah, actually, I've read that you wrote that before, generally specific, and I think it's a fine saying. Religion is where faith goes to die. I like that. I think that if you have a series of acts that you perform in order to be complying with some dogmatic interpretation of ancient scriptures, be they Tanakh or New Testament or the Stele of Hammurabi or the Epic of Gilgamesh or what have you, then you're just like forming comforting habits. But what does that mean, and why is it important, and why should it be repeated? And above all that, why should I start doing it? I see no reason to start doing that. Peace and respect to Freak. I think I saw a comment by you earlier. I'm not sure if I said hello. A lot of religion has become doctrine, worship, and superstition, some with rituals. Yeah. You know, I really think, to Freak, that the Catholics, the Eastern and Russian and Asian Orthodox churches have no idea that their Mass is a reenactment of end times. The whole Catholic Mass thing, it's a reenactment of the book of Revelation. It's rather brief, but that's what it is. It'd be much better, much more fun if we had like computer generated images in like a laser light show in the church, so you could have at the right time, you could have the smoke rise up out of the furnace, and you could have the locust flying through the church, stinging people. It'd be a lot more exciting. But they don't do all that. They just kind of hit the high points and move on. And I mean, Grandpa's got to be back out to the car in an hour, 20 minutes or less, or he's just not staying. Okay, you're coming into the chat. Going to join panel. Or you're not going to join panel. If you're not going to join panel, I'm just going to wrap this thing up. I cannot just go on and on and on and on speaking about stuff. It's just not me. I don't even like the sound of my own voice. Subliminal wrote, Richard, let me introduce you to the dark web. I've heard of it. I've been avoiding it on purpose. So I won't be doing that in any form. Now, there are certain things that in prayer was revealed to me that if I look into them, they would cause me scars. And after that, I made a decision as to whether or not I was willing to accept whatever scar. And some scars I have accepted and some I have rejected. You offer me a scar, I think I'll decline. Peace and respect. Wildheart, how you doing, brother?
Peace, man. How's it going?
Oh, great for me. Ashra's Orchard wrote, I could join. What are we discussing? Menorah, especially if you have anything to add on either the menorah itself, whether that be 7 or 9 candle or branch, whether it be the shamash, the meanings of those things. Ashra's Orchard, I'm aware that you know quite a bit of the relationships between these fundamental religions from Mesopotamia. So I would welcome you in to speak of it if you want. Wasn't asking you to call your face to leave a scar for the public to see. Yes, I know subliminal, but there's emotional scars that I don't want. I mean, I thank you for your offer, but I think I'm not going to be checking out the dark web. Thoughts on your mind, David?
I just joined to keep the stream going. I heard you mention that you're going to end the stream if no one joins, so. But I'm very ignorant on. Are we talking like Jewish? I've just realised I'm very ignorant on Jewish. I didn't understand a lot of
that. Okay. What do you suppose you were ignorant about? Do you think you could like repeat some of it or give me some clues? And
basically all of it. Like
all of it.
Yeah, I have no idea what a menorah is.
Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
Because Christians aren't Jews.
Yeah.
And you did not grow up in a Jewish society. Yeah. You grew up in a Christian society. So the same reason that you know so much about Christianity is the same reason you don't know about Judaism.
Yeah.
So the next time I say to you, you've adopted Christian view on this, and this, you're going to take my word for it and hear me, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with that already. I'm well aware of
Oh,
that.
good.
Yeah.
Good. So many people get mad at me when I say, hey, you've been Christianated in your culture. And they go, no, I haven't. And I go,
Yeah.
ah,
No,
yeah, you
no.
have. Sorry.
Yeah.
Peace and respect and welcome back, Marty.
And I thought,
So I mean, there's so much to cover on Judaism that the Christians are just unaware of, and it's easy to understand why. You know, welcome in Ashra's Orchard. It's easy to understand why we can be so removed from Judaism, being, an ocean away, 1,000 years plus later. It's real easy to figure out. All right, the floor is yours, Ariel.
I mean, I'm better in response, especially because I woke up a while ago, but I'm still like mentally waking up. But yeah, I mean, one thing that's definitely worth mentioning is that there's two possible. Well, yeah, I mean, technically it goes back to the same root, but with different meanings, but they both connect. So with Menorah, you have the potential that you have the combination of the word mean and aura, which together means from light, and together that's Menorah. But it's possible that you also have that it's menorah, that it's like connected to the root nor, which is like can be reduced further down to nair, which has to do with a flame or a candle. And so what's interesting with the min aura is that aura doesn't just mean light, it can also refer to an herb of light. Like this idea of like an herb or a plant which you eat of it and it brings light to the eyes, similar to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and how their eyes were I forget what the term is, but it's like their eyes lit up or something. And then you also have that same thing with the I think it's in Kings or something, where you have the story of David and Jonathan's like going through this field of quote unquote honeywood, and he's tasting of it, and nobody's supposed to eat before the battle, and so he's like violating this thing. But yeah, so I think it's really interesting because you have these two potential roots basically tracing back to herbs and also to light slash candles.
Right. And in fact, you might be slightly surprised to find out that I believe that the tree of knowledge of good and evil is reserved for some specific time that has not happened yet, and that it is the time of enlightenment of the mind. The King James does such a disservice to the reader, and they saw they were naked. Saw? No, 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 no. And their brains exploded because they realized how dumb they were before this. In our modern tongue, it should be written something like that. Yeah, it's not just seeing; it's the enlightenment of the mind, the opening of the eyes, the big epiphanic realizations is what it's actually talking about. They saw that they were naked. So this this light, this, how much connection is there between Shamash and Mashiach?
Uh, I mean, I'm like I've definitely heard of like parables where like people refer to like this idea of being like a lamplighter, but I
Right.
think that it's like in terms of like etymology, there's no connection. There's definitely connections that are drawn between them, but not from their roots.
Right. It's funny to me that like religious people in my community will say, "Oh, the Mesopotamian culture of whatever was wrong. They didn't have a god. They were sun worshippers." And I just think that's a really shallow and prejudiced way to look at it. when all of us see by the light of day. That is, we experience and realize and have understanding of things because our eyes receive reflection of light, literally. And were you blind, you would not understand things that way. That's just how the human body works. So there's nothing wrong with saying something like the sun is the source of knowledge. In that way, it literally is. And I think in my culture, at least, they lose that.
So I'm looking this up right now because when I typed and they saw that they were naked, nothing popped up. So I'm trying to see what it is in Hebrew. Let's see.
I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but I'm supposing it's gonna mean not just to look and just casually see something. It's going to mean to deeply understand.
Okay, let's see. So it's interesting. Before he even gets this, by Hushnehem, and they were the two of them, Arumim. They were naked. Ha'adam ve'ishto, the human and his woman, velo yitbosheshu, and they were not ashamed.
Right.
So, what's interesting with that, there is this tradition. It's kind of like a rearranging the words, but basically, so the root for bosh, which means shame, you can rearrange it, literally reverse it. Bush becomes shuv or shuv, and shuv means to return. And so there's kind of like this idea of like the opposites of like shame, and then kind of not repentance within this idea of like, oh, you're
but to come out of the shame.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's see. So, okay. Then the eyes of both of them were opened. Einei shnehem v'yad. Okay, yeah. V'tipakachna einei, and their eyes, shnehem, of both of them, were opened. Va'yed u, and they knew. And this idea of yada, it's also a word that's connected with like sexual intercourse as well. This idea of like, and he knew her.
Right.
So
that's
yeah.
Now, is that a problem with translating it into the English, or is that a problem in the root word? Not a problem, but a diversity of usage within the actual definition.
Wait, sorry, one more time.
You said no can mean in the carnal sense, and no can be mean in the philosophical sense. So is that just diversity of usage? It's the definition. Is that broad, or is it a translation problem into the English when both those ideas are translated into knew each other?
No, like it's but I mean, it's completely contextual. So like if it's talking about, I'm trying to think like when Isaac and Rebecca, like after they start cohabitating, it says, and he knew her, like,
Right.
or like,
and she bore him a son. Yeah.
Yeah, so that context is going to determine it. But because you do have so much context with this, like for instance, that then they knew they were naked. So here you have this double context where they both knew that they were naked, but it could also be that they knew that they were naked, and like with that you have this double implication because the word no can also mean to have sex.
Did you catch all that, Dave?
Yeah, that's why he said I knew them biblically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why in our culture we have that expression, although it's getting to be an old, unused expression. But yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
I knew her in the biblical sense. Yeah.
Oh, wait, is that where that joke, so and so, I hardly knew her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the inner of the thigh meant really the testicles. Do you know what I mean?
Things like that. Yeah.
You have the example of Abraham making what is it? Eliezer, his servant, swear on his balls.
Yep. Yeah, it's like swearing on your progeny, your future, the inheritor of your lands, all that sort of thing. You're swearing on them.
Yeah.
Which means, if you swore and lost and your testicles were taken, after you die, if you haven't already had kids, after you die, the land goes back to the state. Sorry.
So was it like a rule in the Old Testament that they didn't mention that kind of thing, or was it just like political correctness? No.
There's a lot of politeness going on there, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of things are spoken metaphorically to be nice.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I like about the 1537 Matthew's Bible is because it's not that polite. It was not meant to be read in church to children. It was meant for preachers to have for their own edification. It was something more like that. So to refer to a male in one part of my Bible, it says them that pisseth on the wall.
Nice.
It's real, meaning, a guy. Women can't do this, which they can, but that's beside the point. But that's the way it's put. Them that piss on the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also an interesting convention where I forget exactly where this appears, but you do have this term where it's kaf yerech, literally the palm of the thigh. And so I'm thinking, okay, what the heck is this? But then I used what I'd explain is like kind of like rabbinic logic. Okay, so you have the kaf yad. The kaf yad is the palm of the hand, or literally the palm of the it's difficult because yad doesn't just mean hand, it also means arm. But the thing is, kaf, like this, in fact, this is also where the shape of the kaf comes from.
Yeah.
And where we get the shape of the K. It's just a reversed kaf, or flipped
Yeah.
kaf rather. But so if the kaf of the yad is this, and this is at the end of the yad, then it's reasonable to assume that the kaf yerech might actually be the head of the penis. And so you have like a lot of things where it's kind of like it makes sense if you're in that culture. But wait, can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was weird. It just like alt tab for some reason. But yeah, so it's not necessarily that they're being like they're trying to avoid talking about something dirty, especially because you have plenty of things where it's just like outright, disgusting, like talking about like the whole, was it like the Baal Peor and how like people would shit on the idol and like worship it or whatever. Like they don't have an issue with things being too disgusting. It's more so, I think that within, and I don't know, this is just my take, is that maybe some level of it has to do, especially because there were words for like different genitals, but I honestly kind of wonder if maybe there, because you have this connection of them of genitals being seen as like something of power, in that same vein, like the whole idea of like certain stones, whether it's like the with like matzeva, like where it's like a pillar, or whether it's like a carved stone, you have like a lot of these connections between the idea of genitals and divine figures. And so maybe it's connected to the taboo around speaking the divine names. And you also have like this taboo around mentioning certain body parts.
Like saying Hashem instead of God.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like a taboo against like saying God's name or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you also, like, one of the things that becomes really common in like rabbinic tradition is rather than refer to God by like a name, specifically, it's more so titles. So like you have Borei Olam, like the creator of the world, Adon Olam, the master of the world. You have a big one in Yiddish is Abishter, which I forget exactly what it means. I think it means something similar to like creator of the universe, but and then what else? There's also Ribono Shel Olam, which I forget what that is, but usually it's not using names, it's using titles because of this idea. Well, you can't name that whose name is unknowable, but a title, well, titles describe, but they aren't necessarily inherent to who someone is.
Is that why there are so many different names for God in the Bible, and they're all capitalized?
So I mean, like,
You can't say his actual name.
That's a part of it.
Yeah.
do you have some examples though?
Yeah, like Elohim, and there's all sorts. There's loads of them. Like he and I are always capitalized, and I mean I is always capitalized anyway. But yeah, and yeah, I don't know them off the top of my head, but there are loads of them.
Yeah.
Like loads
So
of different names for God.
so with he and I, that's just going to be the reason it's capitalized is because like the importance of it. But it's just the words would just be like I would be ani or anochi, and then he would be who. So it's not too complex, but you get into interesting names. The type of ones that end up getting some of them get translated as like an attempt to avoid any connection to pagan traditions, but like one of the terms that's applied to God is Baal Hagivurot, or the Lord of the strength or the powers. But the thing is that Baal is like, and this gets kind of to the root of it, Baal wasn't actually a proper deity name. It was a title, and it was applied to multiple deities. And so the question that some scholars have is, was there actually a difference between Baal and like the Israelite god, or was it simply how people were worshiping this? And kind of going back to this idea of people worshiping the sun, it's like, oh, they get demeaned for worshiping the sun, but is it really that simple, or is that just almost like a polemic against them? In the same way that you could see how in a world with where to have a god is to have an idol, that the Jews were seen as Jews and Christians.
Idolaters, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, as atheists.
Atheist, that was the first term, yeah. That what the word Baal means is carried in the mouth of the person using it. Well, where are you from, and what do you believe, and what would you mean by Baal? It doesn't have that intrinsic value, meaning some pagan deity. It doesn't mean that.
And that gets back to like the Jews being initially polytheistic. Like Yahweh was like a storm god, wasn't he? He was one of like 7 or 10 sons of the main god.
Seven to seven.
Okay, so here's what I think is the truth of it. Anyone is welcome to disagree with me. If you had a spaceship the size of this planet, and it had been in distant space, and it was energetically charged, and the planet were charged oppositely, which this planet has been proven it's a capacitor, and it's fully charged capacitor, and it went into the atmosphere, and it stopped about 3,000 feet off the ground. That would make that the storm god's habitation, because how much air it just pushed out of the way, how much heat it just put in the atmosphere, and that there would be lightning crackling everywhere. So is it a storm god? Well, yeah, it is, but that's because of reality.
Yeah, no, I was talking more about the original myth or story was about Yahweh being one of, like, I think it's 7 sons. So it's not about the storm thing. It's about he wasn't like the one god. He was one of. You can't be one god when you're one of 7 sons of a bigger god. If you know what I mean.
Yes, but I could easily say at the time there were 7 major religions on the planet, and that's what it was actually talking about.
Okay.
And that all of them were the god.
Yeah.
That's why they're siblings. That's because they're equal.
Yeah.
Which is like saying we told everyone the truth of God.
Yeah. But
I can go that way with it too, so I mean, it depends on what culture, at what time, and what they meant by that expression. But you can't take it in the wooden, literal, developed culture, Western culture view. You just can't do that, because that's not the way it was being used at the time. So he is the god of war. Yeah, that's right. Because Michael comes and starts destroying the planet while we're watching. And there will be wars. So yes, he's a war god. That's correct also.
I'd actually say primarily a war god, and it's later on that you get kind of this combination with other like other characteristics. And I mean, a big reason for that is because, well, see, and also kind of going with how similar he is to, you know, like the figure of Baal Hadad, you have this simultaneous connection between fertility, between war, like all these. But the interesting thing, and this is what I kind of found when I was reading the Baal cycle, is that Baal isn't as much of a war god as the god of the Bible is. Like much more focused on fertility and procreation. And
Who was their embodiment of a war god?
who's
Same time, same people, same place. That had a more universe or a more okay another people who would have used the term Baal to mean their god, who you say was more about fertility. What was their or one of their gods of war?
probably a not, but she was more so like, I mean, more so slaughter and like violence. And then you
Okay.
have Reshef, who is the god of like war and disease, like pestilence. So I think it's
Okay.
probably like different aspects of war rather than a war god. And I kind of get the aspect that Yahweh would have originally been somewhat of like a god of like a pillaging or raiding tribe that later on got combined with other aspects, but kept the name, and so as well as some of the original traditions. And like what's interesting is you actually have trying to think. Well, so actually you have Reshef, which was a war god, but then you also have Dever, which was a disease god, and in any cases, both these figures get associated with Yahweh in different contexts. But the other thing that, yeah, the I think the time when it says like, you know, Yahweh is a man of war, which, you know, it doesn't mean a man. It's like kind of more so saying he's a warrior. Like it's like there is a word for warrior, but it's saying like, I don't know, because I've heard a lot of people try to use Ishmael Chama, man of war, as in order to say, okay, well, so this means that God could be a man, but you know, missing the point. But
I think that's missing the point.
yes, but that appears in the Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, which is basically, you know, celebrating the victory over the Egyptians, you know, in the Red Sea. Which, interestingly, just to touch on that, looking at the Septuagint, I found because I think there is a lot of value to the Septuagint, but only in context of the Hebrew Bible. And so, like, if you look at the how it renders the Red Sea in the Septuagint, it actually renders it as like the Sea of Extremity, or like the final sea. I forget exactly how it translates into Greek, but basically, if you look at the fact that Yam Suf, Suf means Suf means scroll or like papyrus.
Papyrus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but without changing a single letter, just its pronunciation, Yam Suf could become Yam Suf, and Suf means end.
Like
And
the final barrier. Yeah, I actually see that in the story of Exodus in the translation that I've adopted. That the story is something like the slave keeper has you divided from where you belong, and you can't break away by yourself, but you need a guide, and that guide is going to lead you through this impassable final thing that will free you from that. But then you have a journey ahead of you, following smoke and mirrors or smoke and fire. You know, the reality and the falsehood. Um, into your final arguments, finally crossing over the place of dissension or Jordan into the land of promise or realization, where you are no longer separated from what you should be. So in that way, the Suf, or Sea of Reeds, and what was the derivative word that you said? It was only different. There's a vowel difference. Mesuf. Is that what you said, Ariel?
Sorry, one more time.
What was it? Suf and Mesuf, or what? How?
No, Suf and Sof.
Suf and Sof. Okay,
And
meaning like the final barrier. Yeah.
well, so I mean, so Yam is C, and then Suf, rather Sof would be N. So the N C, or the final C. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is that there is like this was it like an underwater, basically land bridge that like if there was, you know, a lot of people try to say, oh, you know, if it were to happen, it would have happened here or here. But at the at the end of the no, there's it's actually interesting.
I know there is, but I don't think that's the story at all, and I think it's completely irrelevant that there's a low spot.
But the point though is that that it's right at the end of the not Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba, and
Okay.
like if basically if there's any place that would be called the Yam Suf, the end of the sea, in context of like where they were, because like you have a beach, but the beach isn't really the end of the sea. But if you're talking about a sea that's more like a river in its shape, then you could have an end.
Sure. Marty, be very happy that you didn't notice when it was 60 pounds overweight, and that you're starting to do something now. Good for you. All right, guys, I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. What are you guys going to do?
I don't know.
David, Asherah here is actually a really good source of information for your atheist brain.
Yeah, sorry, I was just typing in the chat. Yeah, we can chat.
Well, if you guys are gone when I get back, I'll shut it down, and if you're still here, I'll join back in.
Cool. Cheers, Richard.
I mean, do you have any questions? I'm much better answering than I am like just talking in general.
Yeah, one thing that popped up, you were talking about like the Exodus and that. Obviously, me not knowing a lot about Judaism and being an atheist, there is a lot of evidence that the Exodus never actually happened. Do you think it was an actual? Sorry about that. Do you think it was an actual thing that happened?
I think that people are reading it wrong. So it's kind of like, I mean, there's a few ways of looking at it, but the way that I go back to is that you did, like, more than anything, it's mythology. But you do have a point where the 18th dynasty of Egypt, the Pharaonic dynasty, was actually Semitic. They were, I think, Hyksos, but they ended up getting pushed out of power, and they ended up getting pushed out of Egypt in general. Now the thing is, you have this combined with plenty of other stories of like transmigration, from Canaan to Egypt, and going back, like basically different than like itinerant farmers that they come back or come for a season and then they leave during the off season, but so I mean I think the first thing is that most likely the Pharaoh of the Exodus would have actually been like maybe not an Israelite, but like, and again, I think like this whole idea of Israelite, gets retrojected into the past. So like, I think it's better to look at it as, as Canaanite communities. But you basically have this Canaanite pharaoh who has, assimilated into Egyptian culture. So doesn't really identify with any, old Semitic traditions other than the ones that got adapted into Egypt. And also, it's kind of interesting because within that narrative, it would actually suggest that, and I mean, it actually kind of holds up to some stuff through history that, like, actually, no, it's, I mean, different times, different places, but that, I mean, just in general, that I think people are more comfortable being, like, more awful to people in their own community because, like, they think they can get away with it. And so, you have this whole narrative that, and then there came a pharaoh that did not know Joseph. But like, what does that actually mean? I mean, there's so many ways that could be interpreted. But ultimately, what I look at is the fact that you do have Canaanite workers and slaves in Egyptian territory. Well, also the other thing is that Egypt. So it is actually the main thing I go back to. That like you have this whole idea when Israel was in Egypt, but what's that mean? Because think about it this way: there was a time where Texas was not part of the United States, and then it became part of the United States. So it's like, you know, it would be like saying when Texas was in Mexico. I don't think it necessarily needs like this, you know, archaeological evidence of, you know, people in mass go, like, given I think that part of the story is, you know, largely mythical, but that the cultural memory of being like in servitude to the Egyptian crown, I think that's definitely possible. Well, not even possible. I think that's proven by historical record. It's just a matter of people wanting the Bible to be literally what it says, whether they believe it or not, because it's kind of one of those things for people who have an issue with the Bible, they want it to not be true. And so, you know, given it's kind of like, well, what parts do you not want to be true? And some people end up taking it to a point where it even goes to like the mythological histories rather than just keeping it at the, you know, like different things that like, oh, you know, this happened, and you know, totally believe it because it's written down here. But like, there's a lot of stuff that can be corroborated that's in the Bible. It's just a matter of, you know, what people's theological or ideological goal is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just difficult to argue against like all the different like Christian or Jewish positions. You know what I mean? It seems like every different Christian has a different view on what's historical and what's not. It's just difficult to work out what's actually true.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's, do you watch South Park at all?
I've seen a few episodes. I'm not a big fan, but I've seen a few.
There's this one episode where basically the main characters, they befriend this one Mormon kid, and the at the end of the oh my god, let me see if I can find this. Let's see. One moment. The truth is, I don't care. He said, let's see. Does it have a? Right. Yeah, he said. So this Mormon kid, he says, the truth is, I don't care if Joseph Smith made it all up. I like what the I like that what the church teaches now is loving your family. Wait, sorry, one second. Yeah, loving your family, being nice, and helping people. Like basically, at the end of the day, I think that there's a lot of people who like they're stuck on something needing to be true. Otherwise, like almost like they can't consider that, you know, if it's not true, what does that mean? Whereas like I think that it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's more so like the reality of what, you know, communities do in the here and now and how they use different texts to inspire them. But obviously, like I think it's a lot different because you have a lot more what I describe as kind of like honestly delusion in the Christian community. I don't think that's because of anything besides like this. Like basically, the way I see it is with Judaism, people tend to either be involved or they're not. Whereas like most people wouldn't, like most people, if they're Christian, like if they don't believe in it, they don't consider themselves Christian. You know, they like I'm guessing you probably grew up Christian, but you consider yourself atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't identify as Christian anymore, even though that's how you grew up. Whereas, you know, it's a lot different with Judaism. And so I think that on one hand, you have this like where Jews don't feel this need for something to be literally true in order to feel connected to it. And I think that on one hand helps to kind of even out some of the more radical elements of like the more, you know, conservative, more religious circles. But even then, like within those circles, there's a certain like decorum and standard where it's like if you go out of that, you'll be considered a heretic. And I think that's the type of thing that, like, given, at that point, like it's really not that bad because there's always, plenty of secular Jewish communities or like less religious ones that would accept you. But I feel like with Christianity, whenever you have someone doing that, it creates its own new movement rather than just having kind of like and strangely enough, I feel like you almost have more diversity of opinion within Jewish thought than in Christianity, despite more Christian movements and like different Christian doctrines, because a lot of those differences are just like one little thing, one little disagreement.
Yeah, I do prefer the Jewish kind of attitude of not proselytizing, like letting everyone, like even if you don't believe in God, you can still go to the, you can still be a part of the Jewish community, and that I think that's much more inclusive than like Christian. If you don't believe what I believe, you're evil and you come from Satan and all that. I do respect the Jewish kind of theology and opinions more. I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's also kind of funny because something that's always made me laugh is people who think that like being quote unquote Satan. Well, again, like I think that most people, their perception of Satan isn't even what Satan was in the Bible. So it's like that's one thing. But essentially, people who think that worshiping Satan is like sticking it to the God of the Bible, it's kind of like they've never read the Bible because. It's only in the New Testament that Well, I'm trying to think. Yeah. Oh, Richard's back. Season Jill. But yeah, that Satan in the Hebrew Bible is at work I'm trying to think. At best, in the eyes of Satanists, buddies with God. At worst, in their eyes, God's bitch. So it's like if you're worshiping Satan because you think that, I'm not going to worship God, I'm going to worship Satan. It's like, that's like saying that, you're not going to show respect to, I'm trying to think, you're not going to show respect to the government. So, you're going to flip off the president, but you somehow like the vice president.
Yeah. Plus, through most of the Old Testament, like you said, Satan is like God's kind of right-hand man, like with Job and everything. He only did what God told him he could do. Do you know what I mean? They were like friends, mostly.
I honestly wouldn't even be that surprised if that originates in like a pre-Judaic narrative where, well, I mean, because a lot of these texts, do pre-exist Judaism as we understand it. I wonder if there, because of some of the ideas that Gnostics later end up developing around Yahweh, I wonder if there was a context where Yahweh was maybe at one point seen as fulfilling this role of Hasatan, of the opponent, or the accuser, and that El was the wise and compassionate God that you would basically entreat that the opposer would not have any power over you. And that could also explain some of the some of the depictions of of Yahweh as like a cacodemon. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Don't know what that means.
I'm not sure.
Let me see if I can find it. Cacodemon.
Feel free to share screen.
Okay, here. Share screen. Present. Share screen. All right. Here.
No, not a cocoa demon. That's not it at all.
No. Wait, you're being funny, right?
Yeah, that was B.S. Lewis. He's playing around.
Oh, but yeah. A cacodemon or cacodemon is an evil spirit in the modern sense of the word. A demon. The opposite of a cacodemon is an agathodemon or a eudaimon. a good spirit or angel. The word kakodemon comes through Latin from the ancient Greek kakodemon, meaning an evil spirit, whereas daimon would be a neutral spirit in Greek, is believed to be capable of shapeshifting. A kakodemon is also said to be a malevolent person. Let's see. Is there... I thought it would have more discussion. Basically, it's kind of like not necessarily bad, but kind of almost like this avenging spirit, or like this spirit that you you offer stuff to in order that it doesn't go after you.
So generally specific, or Todd, meet David and Ariel.
I remember Wildheart. Hey, Ariel, nice to see you. And would you say that would be a quid pro quo spirit?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, you have to give it this, or otherwise you get that, or you have to give it this for that.
Yeah.
You have to give it an offering, otherwise it comes after you. A quid pro quo. Okay. I guess that joke landed flat.
No, I like it.
The problem is it was too accurate.
Yeah, perhaps. Did you get my text message?
When?
I just while you were out smoking a cigarette, I was sending one because I had some thoughts on what Ariel was talking about.
The answer is no.
Okay.
Read it aloud. Is okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the smoke and the mirrors could be why the journey that should have taken 2 weeks took 40 years. The number 40 is very, very important in gematria, and not to be taken literally as they did for the English translation. Also, they said Pharaoh gave them meat and wanted to go back into bondage, and the golden calf idol worship, etc. And that's just true of human nature under stress and not knowing how bad it's going to get. People will die trying to retrace their steps.
But the whole smoke and mirrors is, they were trying to get to the promised land, and they kept being deceived that they thought the mirage in back of them was like you were saying, the way they came was safer than the way they were to go.
That's what they thought. Of course, that's true of someone in college. If you've been to any institution of higher learning, you'll find that there's those there that are very, very close to the end and quit.
Interesting.
Yeah,
because they know something will be expected of them.
I have a very bad joke. It takes a very special kind of God to make a 2-week journey last 40 years.
Right.
That's a very special God.
Or a really bad navigator.
Yeah.
Either one would do. Yeah. Yeah. The number 40 is the idea of trials. So when it reads 40 days and 40 nights, it's that should be in our language, heroic trials. And the 40 nights would be definitionally like navigating a winding staircase at night.
Like a fortnight?
Well, actually, I don't know that we get fortnight from that exactly. I'd have to look into it. But that's the meaning of what 40 days and 40 and why you keep seeing it. That's why Christ, after the resurrection and seeing the apostles, continues on for 40 days and is tempted by Satan after 40 days. This is all the same thing. It's about the trial of the hero.
It's also. I was just going to say it's worth mentioning that the specific, probably the most prescient. Probably one of the most prescient associations that 40 has within Judaism. On one hand, you have 40, which the gematria is mem, and mem is mem yud mem, or mem yud yud mem, which Mayim, you can spell it either way, but if it has 2 yuds, then it's like one of the names of God. But in either case, it's like you have 2 mems on either side of it, and the mem is water, and so you have that association with the flood. But on top of that, right, you have this association of the number 40 with the idea of a generation. That 40 right, years is a generation passing.
Right. So Mayim, the word for flood, different from the word Yom, which is sea or ocean or a large body of water. Go ahead. Am I saying that wrong?
Yeah. So Yom is day, Yam is sea, and
Yam.
Yeah, and mayim is water. What the word for flood? The word for flood is mabul.
Right. And mayim, which is used and translated into the word flood, actually means juice in small amounts, including piss, urine, semen, fruit juice, things like that. So it's a direct reference to us as human beings that come from semen. And that's what it means by flood, meaning there's a bunch of us, not that there's a bunch of H2O. So when they read it as H2O, it's not even keeping with the word yam.
Wait, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the flood narrative.
Yeah, but paralleled with the other flood narratives surrounding it, it's clearly referencing seasonal floods. I mean, like the shape of the ark, it's similar to these these river rafts that are used in like Mesopotamian marshes. It's clearly a reference to an actual flood, but not like it's a myth. It's a myth. It's taking something that happened and making it larger than life.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I mean by cryptic prophetic animism is it's using real events to explain a greater thing that's hard to understand. Just like it's using an actual river raft shape to explain a greater thing. But it's not, I don't think it's really talking about the river raft. I don't think it's really talking about seasonal floods. That's not the point.
I mean, I think to say that that's not the point is kind of reductive. Like, why can't it be multiple things?
Well, yeah, I welcome anyone who says, "Oh, it's a foreshadowing," something like that. And I'm not greatly all that concerned with the actual history of this planet. That's not my thing. But I am very concerned with where we're going as a species. I am very concerned with that, and I think that's what it's more addressing. As to Jamie Russell, we know where the rock of Horeb is. Actually, we found a rock that was very, very affected by water. That's true. And we found one in approximately the right location. That's also true. But rocks like that are all over the planet, and that doesn't mean that is the rock of Horeb. It's cherry picking the information. It's logically fallacious.
Wait, what were they trying to imply?
That he's trying to say this is historically accurate. I'm saying it's historically inconsequential.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Horeb's a region, and then the mountain was named after that.
I've heard recently that if the global flood did happen, the physics of it would actually destroy the planet. I don't know whether that's true or not. It's just something I've heard, but
yeah, there's a heat problem because if that much water fell from the sky and came up out of the crust, it would cause so much heat that it would cook everything, everything on the whole planet. Yeah,
and I think even answers in Genesis recognizes it as a real problem. They don't have
yes, they do.
Yeah, but that's forcing the narrative to conform to reality in a way that only people who literally believe it as true will do, or people trying to debunk it, which is kind of with this whole multi-level of interpretation, especially if you look into Hasidut, Jewish mysticism, almost everything has the spiritual level to it, and it's kind of what you're talking about, but they're looking at its end goal as being this deep spiritual, meaning to it rather than this literal. And it's kind of on some level, I mean, I don't know. I think that it's possible to glean that, that knowledge and benefit from it without necessarily needing to believe that it's true. It just happens that most people, because of how, strict or how rigidly minded they are, they'll only study that or only believe that has value if they believe that it's 100% true or true enough that it can't be disproven, to the point that if it can be disproven, then they have no interest in it.
Yeah, I was mainly talking about Jamie Russell and that, people who believe it's literally true, and if it's impossible to true, then there's a problem there.
I see. Yeah.
Halcyonic Kaiju, if all the crustal plates were equidistant from the absolute core of the planet, there would be plenty of water to cover all the land masses. And it's only that what we call continents are higher up, are further away from the core, and that the seafloor is closer to the core. You'd have to maintain that and then get the water to move. So, I mean, I don't think that that's even what the flood narrative is about. But consider the following: if the earth were perfectly smooth, 300 gallons would cover the earth.
Hello.
Peace and respect. How you doing, lady?
Hello.
Okay, I'm
Long
hanging
time
in
no
there.
see.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. How are y'all? I just wanted to. I totally agree. There were major water floods over our course, but the whole big global one, just it would have happened around like when humans were 100,000 years ago. Sorry for stuttering. just it's so long ago that it was almost in the cave painting realm. There is an event, though, within the past 2,000 years, we can record on Vancouver Island, and geologists have traced it with the First Nation legends that there was an 11 earthquake that almost like leveled the island.
Yeah.
And
would that be the same time that the mammoth were shoved up into Alaska?
No, this was actually probably during 200 years, after ACE. I keep wanting to say after Christ, but that's inappropriate, but I'm old school. But yeah, apparently on the island we had this massive thing, and it's recorded in the trees and the rocks, and you can go into the soil, and it's just part of, is this just nature, or can you blame God?
Well, there is a natural
And we
cycle that
care around them instead of being like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Okay, no, it's going to fall, but we can have survival gear, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think it works much better to say that modern mankind is the Mayim, the flood, because we have done everything, or in the process of doing everything, that the flood narrative claims. We have a space station that covers every mountain. It is over every mountain. That we are we drown and or kill each other. That's true. That I mean, I just don't know of a part of the story that isn't true of the 8 billion people on this planet right now.
Yeah, I actually can't argue with you on that one. Normally, some things but no, that is an accurate description. We are
Like,
the flood.
if I say that Christians hold in high regard the story of Noah's Ark, another way, and that's just true. Everybody knows that.
Oh,
then
yeah.
I could say it like this. I could say the ark was lifted up over the waters. That would be the same thing.
I've heard that one in church before, and I know it was an allergistic statement, but I understand it better when you explain it like that.
Yeah.
But what are we going to do anyways? It is like the flood. It is like,
I think there's nothing to be done. And okay, so a person A person like yourself can change their mind and say, you know, I'm going to do better. I'm going to be more of a humanitarian and be more responsible with hazardous materials. I'm going to be a better caretaker of the earth. But you can't get a high percentage of people to agree to that, because economies and people trying to, third world nations trying to become second, trying to become first world nations, you just can't get everybody to do it. And since we can't get 100% agreement, we're not going to do it.
Well, also, I personally see a lot of people exploiting this narrative for their own personal gains. It seems so virtuous to do all this environmental stuff, and
Sure.
meanwhile, they're just creating slush funds and exploiting people, getting tax breaks for doing nothing, just under the guise of we're saving the environment. So I wanna believe in, let's save the animals, let's save trees, but at the same time, when I see the people who are entrusted to save it exploiting tax funds, it's hard to believe anymore.
Right.
Is that fair? Like,
well, it's perfectly fair. I think it's what we need saved. I think these bad ideas are what we need saved from.
and yeah, it's just hard because you can't even say it in Canada these days. You can't say
what?
anything. You can't say anything. You can't even say there's only two genders. Oh my God! Like, are the cops going to show up at my door? Like, you can't say anything here. It's getting that way. But, what would Jesus do? Tip over the tables and go wild, like, expose the hypocrisy. Isn't that what you do? In your own way.
Well, I'm trying to do it gently, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, if it's the mega church or the televangelist version of Jesus, then he might tell you to just give him some money.
Hey man, if I could throw money at Canada, I would right now, but they have it all.
Who doesn't need a third jet plane? Do you know what I mean? Joe Olstein, I'm looking at you.
I know. I'm making bad jokes, and I appreciate this. It's just, we had 100 churches in Canada burn. Only 3 were labeled hate crimes. Even though, even people were like, yeah, I purposely set fire to this church because I hated it. Only 3 were hate crimes. This is how Canada's going. And sometimes I come on here, I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean or I feel like I'm screaming up against a brick wall, and no one takes it seriously how bad it is up here. We don't have freedom of religion anymore. We don't.
Yeah, you're free to not have a religion.
Yeah, that is what it is.
What about MAID? Isn't that getting really bad?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Canada, number 1 in organ donations. And they were trying to push legislation that would enable minor, handicapped kids to get made, who can't even consent, who are minors, to be able to consent to taking their own lives. This is how bad Canada is. And MAID is awful. They were telling veterans, one veteran, oh, you need a stair lift. Oh, well, why don't you just kill yourself? It's like, no, you're a veteran. Plus, she is a Paralympic, gold medalist. This is the type of person you give a stair lift to, not oh, well, you're too big a drain on the system. But this is Canada now. and it doesn't get across the border. You know, everyone just
What are you guys saying? MAID? MADE? Does that stand for something? Or
MAID,
oh,
medically assisted suicide.
Yeah, I think it stands
That's
for.
it. Yeah, it's basically Soylent Green. Like you can, it started out as for old people, like, hey, I just want to take I'm done. I'm old. Now they're trying to expand it to minor children. And I've been fighting, like, everyone's been trying to fight this for, at least all the government's on vacation, so they can't push it any further, but it's coming. This is how little they value life in Canada.
But what are the circumstances? I mean, are they terminally ill? And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's how it started, but now it's been expanded like under
Yeah.
the guise of compassionate care. But it's like at the end of the day, you look at what they're doing, it's only a little bit far removed, like only just a little bit removed from how the Nazis started with their
Yeah, it is. Like, while you would be a candidate, they would be recommending you for it. And I hate to say that as a friend, but this is how insidious it is.
See, I'm not for me personally, but I'm not against that. If someone's terminally ill and they know that the rest of their life is going to be painful, and
yeah,
no matter what the age they are, if they know they're going to die.
Well, David, I think you missed the point that it's being extended to those who are not even ill, other than that they're depressed.
Ah, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's, and it's getting scary because you start saying anything, you're on some kind of like a list or something, But I mean, it's wrong. I know it's wrong. I'm not going to say, I'm going to keep saying it's wrong. What are they going to do to me? Really.
Yeah.
Is the Gestapo going to charge down my apartment and say you can't say kids can't get suicide? I don't know.
Yeah, I do disagree with that. If they're not like terminally ill or anything, I think
it's getting that far, David.
Yeah.
It's like the way I see it, there's plenty of ways about going about that, but it's not how they're doing it. And then, but you're talking about organ harvesting, about how Canada's become number one or something.
Yeah. Since California, at the same time Canada introduced our policies, they only had 2,000 people enroll in the system. In the same time, Canada had 20,000 people. And now we are number one on organ donations, which seems really great on the surface. But when a lot of these people are just depressed, why aren't we giving them therapy? Oh, if
organ donations have gone up because more people are allowed to die in a controlled way, and then their organs are donated to science. They sign a form before they get the medical assistance. Well, it's no wonder the numbers went up, but how do we call that good?
It is. Well, it's also we are missing a lot of the therapy. It is more expensive to give someone therapy and get them well than feed them into big pharma. Which is, you get all this surgery, you get all these, and I'm not just talking about the plastic surgery. I'm just, and everyone thinks that we get this little nick-tuck, we'll be fabulous. But when it becomes like, I am so depressed. I don't think I can live. And we aren't giving people therapy. And we are encouraging them. Oh, well, you have this option of maid. And nobody thinks bad of you. You are doing actually a service to your society because you're not being a drain anymore. You're not taking up resources. You're not depressed. And so this is how they build it up. So people believe it. And everyone here is depressed. I'm sure every single person in this panel and chat has had our moments, but having
had moments.
this
Okay.
as the option is wrong. No, our lives are worth more, you know. And I just thank you for letting me talk, because it's scary, because it doesn't seem like it's being taken seriously in Canada. And it's scary. Like, maid is evil. It's gone too far. You know, and in the fall, it'll be next round with the Senate for some of these new legislations, which is always fun, trying to work a regular job and follow the Senate and House of Commons. But someone has to shut these assholes down. One day I will.
Peace and respect to Mr. Miyagi, or Miyagi, I guess.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll just call that Mr. Miyagi.
I have the Karate Kid like theme song in my head now.
Yeah.
Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax
Very,
off.
very uplifting song.
Right. So what can we fight about, Richard? I'm looking at you.
Whatever you like.
Doctrine like.
Yeah, just make a claim about the text, and I'll show you why you don't necessarily have to be right.
Right.
We'll just pick it back up from about 6 months ago then.
Yeah.
Because we were doing that about 6 months ago.
I can pick one out of here. We can chill. Like, you want to fight. Like, there's a whole big book here. Yeah. Nice, a little more worn in.
Just give me a Matt Dillahunty and I'll show you why he's stupid.
Right.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah. He's absolutely stupid, but it's hard to pick one.
No, I mean, the most famous one is you shouldn't believe in something until you have good reason to believe in it. Like, most Christians believe in... Would you agree, Richard, that most Christians believe in something without good reason, without sufficient reason?
I would say that they believe in things that they don't understand and they suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's the most...
But the greater question is there no way to believe things out of the Bible and justify them in reality is the real question, not do people believe things that hurt them. That's the wrong question.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people believe all kinds of things that are harmful to them. What's that got to do with religious text?
Not necessarily harmful to them. That they do. Do you believe that a book written 2,000 years ago that we don't necessarily know who wrote it, a lot of it, we don't know whether it's true or not, there are miraculous claims? Do you think that can never be justified to believe in, no matter what your interpretation or what
until you got to the no matter your interpretation part, I could have agreed with you that it doesn't make sense to me to believe that there's a talking donkey or that there ever was.
Yeah.
They don't have the minute mouth movements in order to make human speech. They can't do that.
And with serpents, obviously snakes don't have vocal cords,
etc., etc. But if I believe that the story is actually about a talking donkey, I can't justify that.
Yeah.
But if I believe that the story is about the red-haired ass who is sure-footed and dependable under God, who sees the angel before the one who's riding his back and whipping him, or you could say riding his coattails, that being the Antichrist and the Christ, then I know it's a true story. It's prophetic and throughout the Bible.
So do you believe that any miraculous claim, you can be justified in believing a miraculous claim based on it just being written down?
No, not what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just asking the question. Do you believe that we should believe any miraculous claims just based on it being written in a book?
Here's what I think. I think we can't prove things and know them in the philosophical sense of those words. Yeah. However, we can say that something is impossible. We can say that. We can know that.
Yeah.
The defeat of physics I hold as impossible. You just can't defeat physics.
Yeah.
Now you could be a very, very advanced. Like if a caveman saw us today and the physics that we use, they would be just flabbergasted, right? But that doesn't mean we're defeating physics. It just means they don't understand what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no defeat of physics as far as I can tell, but I don't see any claims of defeat of physics in the Bible. And for instance, like Ariel brought up the word mayim, meaning piss or fruit juice or semen.
Yeah.
And talking about a collective of mayim, meaning a group of people that come from sperm, which is, that's true, and egg, but it's still true. We come through being progeny, through sex acts of our parents. That's where we come from, for real. And that Peter attempts to walk on the waters, the mayim. And look it up. I'm not kidding you. That word right there is mayim. It's not yam. It's not ocean or sea. It's not that word. It's a different word. So when Peter attempts to walk on the waters and Jesus can walk on the waters, it makes perfect sense to me that Peter falls down into the waters.
Yeah.
That means he became a normal person. He left his apostleship for a time. And Jesus reaches and pulls him back up out of the waters, the group of people. And that's why he says to him, "O you of little faith." It's because he lost his faith. He became a normal guy.
Wait,
is that defeating of physics at all? No, it just means Jesus is in charge and nobody else can be.
You said that yam doesn't mean what?
It doesn't mean a small bit of water. It's for a large body of water. Yam. I don't know how to say it right. You say it well, I'm sure, but I'm not.
I can see it in my head, like the letters. I can that makes total sense the way you're saying it.
Actually, when I talked to Doug Pine Creek, this is what we came to, that you could take it literally and say Jesus was crowd surfing.
Yeah.
And that would be a solid interpretation of the actual words. So is it defeating physics? Well, no, because we're solid.
So yam can refer to a lake.
Sure it can. But mayim cannot.
No. Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying that yam only refers to a sea.
Well, it's some large body of water, right? Yam, however I'm supposed to say it wrongly. But mayim is in reference to a small, some small amount of some kind of liquid or juice.
Oh, you know what else is interesting? So you can break down mayim into mayam, from the sea.
So it's a small part of a larger, yeah, I totally dig it, yeah.
Very I very cool. Thank you.
And when you consider that there's waters above, I believe that means angels, and that's why they're in or throughout the firmament. That is, they're in heaven. That's the firmament. And the waters below, which are on, as in on the outside of, covering the firmament, which is true of us. We're on the planet. We can't get under the crust, and we can't get all of us off the planet either. So they are throughout, and we are upon. That's just how it is. And both, yes, those are both mayim, which is why the waters are divided from the waters, and you have waters above and waters below that firmament, because you have angels in heaven and us below.
I mean, it couldn't.
That makes sense. That makes sense, actually, with a lot of other.
Does for me. Yeah. What's that, Ariel?
What about the waters, above, as in the moisture in the atmosphere, and then the waters below as the aquifers?
Okay, well, that works okay. I'm not saying it doesn't, okay? But it depends on where you're going to put the firmament, doesn't it? And what do you mean by firmament?
True. Well,
because if the firmament's on the outside of it, all that's below the firmament.
Well, so that's the other thing, that the waters above could just be referring to space, but they didn't understand that it was space, so they saw it as like a river in the sky.
Fair enough, but that means it was written by man, and it's wrong.
Yeah, I'm not claiming that it was literally written by God and that it's 100% true.
Okay, well, I can, because I find no conflicts within it in this reading frame against the actuality that we know of. Like, I don't have to claim flat Earth sitting on pillars in a snow globe. I don't have to claim that. I'm not sure I wouldn't, but I don't have to.
I just want to say thank you, Richard. Thank you, Ariel. And thank you, Menorah, and everyone inside chat. It's getting late here, so I have to go to bed. But thank you very much.
Before you go, I love you. I enjoy you a lot in this mental state. Keep respecting yourself.
Thank you. I love you too, man.
Take care. Nice meeting you.
Sure.
Cheers. Bye.
Oh my God, my hair is like
cute.
I know. It's like I got
just what's wrong with
it? It's almost like the little rascals, like the little.
You really don't understand men.
No, I don't.
When a woman is a tiny bit disheveled, but she's not going out, it's cute.
Well, I can't fix it. I don't.
Now, if he's taking you out to dinner and you leave the house with your hair like that, okay, fine. That's inappropriate. However, if you were alone with the guy and your hair was like this,
well, maybe he could help me fix it. I don't know.
I'm just saying.
I'm not a spa girl.
Okay, where do we sit? I'm ready to wrap it up. It's been 2 hours.
All right. This was fun.
Ariel, thank you so much for your input. I really appreciate your brain and the commitment you've had, the research you've done, and your zeal for the topic. Menorah, thank you for your insights into Canada. Oh, and Canada.
Ariel and Richard, you guys, we need more discussions like this. Thank you.
Also, on a side note, I wonder if that South Park song "Blame Canada" finally applies.
Absolutely, more than you even realize.
I've heard other people say that South Park is like the book 1984, that it's predicting the actuality.
Basically, yeah. It's really weird. What people were saying about The Simpsons is actually becoming true with South Park in a way The Simpsons never could have gotten right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, this was fun.
Thank you so much. I had a blast with you, man. Thanks a lot. Come by anytime. See yourself to the door. I don't kick folks.
All right. Take care.
Take care. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Please don't believe what I'm saying. Please go and check it for yourself and see if it's true. Because, and why do I say that? Not because I think you'll prove me wrong. I think you're going to prove me right. But it's much more important and more persuasive to the individual when they see these things for themselves. Go see it for yourself. Peace and respect to you all. And until we're all in heaven and great friends forever, well, just know that I look forward to that. Later.